Coping with family separation, fear for a parent, and trying not to let their pain show are things many military children experience. But there's a growing awareness of the special needs military children have, particularly those of Guard and Reserve families. To better find out what it means when a parent deploys, we went looking for help. And that's how we met the Reiser family.
You okay?
Yes. You fed my brother.
Yes, I defeated your brother.
In July 2005, Army Reservist Captain Arthur Reiser got the news. He would deploy to Iraq in 3 weeks. Time was limited to prepare himself and his family.
People get so wrapped up in the deployment that they forget that they're going to be more stressed if they leave without having all their T's crossed and their I's dotted. You know, making sure their power of attorney is set up, or those kind of things.
Explaining the need for their father's imminent departure, particularly to 6-year-old Gabriel, wasn't easy.
I think he understood a lot more than we gave him credit for, because once we told him where Daddy was going, he specifically asked him if he could die. I mean, it was really serious for Gabe from day one of being notified.
Too soon, Monique, Gabriel, and 1-year-old Asher were on their own, while on the other side of the world, the missing member of their family began his 15-month tour in Iraq.
My job was to mentor, train, and evaluate the Iraqi army. Basically, we would go on missions with them, we would go out and patrol with them.
Then, on August 5th, in the first week of his deployment, the thing everyone with a loved one in Iraq fears most happened. The IED attack killed several of the patrol's Iraqi members and injured many others, including Captain Arthur Reiser, who suffered a concussion and some hearing loss. When news of the attack reached home, Monique was forced to realize the reality of the dangers her husband faced, and what seemed an endless wait full of worry began.
It just became a daily prayer.
Meanwhile, Arthur focused on staying safe for the sake of his wife and sons.
You know, my greatest fear in Iraq was not dying, it was having that knock at 2 o'clock in the morning at my wife's door.
Where's your glove? Okay, go ahead and get your glove.
Time passed, thankfully with no additional scares. Monique focused on her children's well-being and trying to maintain some normalcy, helping with homework,
Rainforest.
taking Gabriel to his softball games.
He seemed to handle it really well. I mean, I have a friend who's a child psychologist. I asked her, is it normal for him to be so normal with all this happening? Because we had just moved for like the 5th time in his life. So I thought he was doing really well, but then there were moments where he really broke down.
They do make a sacrifice. I mean, being without your dad when you're 8 years old is a big deal. To have that kind of ripped away from you for 15 months, I can just imagine what his little heart and his little mind were going through.
He developed a lot of fears. He had nightmares and things like that, and he was just afraid of everything. And now I think he's a lot shyer than he used to be.
That shyness was in evidence when we sat down with Gabriel to talk about his father's absence. But once he got more comfortable, we learned of a special project he started to help him stay connected with his dad.
I used to write books for weeks, and then I sent them to him. Things that I made up in like stories.
And all along, Monique used every other means she could to keep the family in touch.
We focused on all the cool things like using the webcam and setting up an email account. There was one particularly, I thought, just incredible moment that Asher turned 2 while he was gone, and so we had a party downstairs in the basement, and we set up the webcam so he got to watch the whole party. I have this picture of Asher with just barely able to put his chin over the desk, looking at his big face on the monitor, and he met people he'd never met before because we had just moved here. He met neighbors and Asher's little friends.
Finally, on August 3rd, 2006, after 15 months away, Arthur returned home.
When he got off the plane, it was kind of cool to finally see him again.
Their father's return also revealed young Asher had felt the separation more keenly than his mother realized.
Yes. It was interesting that the entire time that he was gone, 15 months, Asher, he was learning to talk, never said anything about Iraq, which I wouldn't expect him to, except for the fact that when he came home, suddenly, every time Daddy leaves the house, Daddy's going to Iraq. Every time Gaby leaves the house, Gaby's going to Iraq, Mommy's going to Iraq. So all this time, again, it's the communication and just trying to understand how to read kids.
Looking back on the whole experience, Monique says one of her greatest challenges as the wife of a reservist was figuring out what her husband's military status meant for her family and where to turn for answers or help, things she eventually figured out through her own initiative.
A family member who doesn't know that you really have to be proactive about it is going to suffer.
The military definitely has good intentions. I think they recognize that if families aren't happy, soldiers are not going to stay.
At the same time, Arthur says responsibility for caring for families isn't only up to the respective service.
Yeah, the Army should take responsibility, or the Air Force or whatever, but I think that soldiers need to be also responsible for making sure that their families are taken care of. She didn't enlist in the United States Army. I did.
The emotional well-being of children like Gabriel and Asher Reiser is something Dr. Stephen Koza has specialized in for many years.
I am a clinically trained general and child and adolescent psychiatrist. I was a medical corps officer for 25 years in the Army.
These days, Dr. Koza is the Associate Director for Child and Family Programs at the Uniformed Services University's Center for Traumatic Stress.
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that military children are a resilient, healthy group of children by far, but they do face some unique challenges.
And those unique challenges, like frequent moves and separation from parents, can present problems. But he says those problems vary greatly depending on age.
For very young children, what we absolutely want to ensure is that we stabilize their routines, that they experience as little disruption in their lives, that when a parent leaves, the availability of that other parent becomes key, and supporting that other parent, whether it be extended family, community, or friends, to ensure that they continue to be available to the youngest children in the family. Severe disruptions in sleep or attachment or lots of anxiety related to separation would also be indications in the younger children that they're struggling with the adjustment to the deployment. For children who are preschoolers who generally have very active imaginations, they may draw the wrong conclusions about what the deployment means. It's important to try to recognize that and help them have a more reality-based assessment as to what's going on. Children at that age who may be demonstrating difficulty, it may be more present in nightmares, crying spells, behavioral problems, whether it be angry outbursts or inability to participate in activities that they typically participate in.